Good afternoon. Welcome to Saturday Sesh. My name is Trey Reckling. I'm the founder and director of Academy of Cannabis Science, and so glad that you could join us today, whether you're joining us live or after the fact on YouTube. We have been doing this since 2015. I'm wearing colors today for Seattle Central, who was our first accredited university that said, yes, we want to partner with you, and they've continued to be a loyal education partner, as is UNLV and Highline College, and more to be announced. Working on a couple right now, so we'll let you know when that happens. So glad to have you join us today. Saturday Sesh is an event where we invite cannabis professionals on to talk about what they're passionate about and why we likewise should share that passion. And today we're pleased to have Angela Williams. Angela is with Skagit Organics, and she's a cannabis veteran who's been in the industry for over 12 years. And we know in cannabis, that's dog years, y'all. That's a long time. As a certified medical cannabis consultant for Skagit Wellness, she works closely with patients to help them navigate what we know is a complex world of medical cannabis. She helps patients find the right products by listening to them, understanding their needs, and she really specializes in this work. And she's had so much opportunity also to educate folks in small groups and larger groups. And so, Angela, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit, how'd you get started? 12 years in the industry, but what started this endeavor?
So it's actually quite interesting. I was corporate America. I worked for banking for 7-8 years, and then I went into insurance. And it was funny because my husband started a company called Northwest Natural Care back in 2011, and I had to get approval that stated I had nothing to do, no knowledge of what he was doing, to continue to keep all of my licenses and all of my endorsements. So it was kind of like blinders on, and then one day he said, hey, I need help with dispatch. So we had Northwest Natural Care was a delivery service. And with that delivery service came some individuals that were very, very ill, meaning that they couldn't leave their homes. So he brought it to them, right? And we had an amazing team that worked with us. But so one day someone called in sick. He had no one to run the phone. So I said, okay, fine. So I did it. And it was one of the most amazing days. I answered the phone and a woman was there, and she said that she needed help and started crying. She was end stage Crohn's. She had no other options left. She was doing all of her infusions at home. She was very, very sick. She was under 100 pounds. And her doctor, her GI specialist, said, try cannabis. We don't know what else to do. And so she did, and she found us. So from there, that's when I said, okay, I'm done with insurance. I have health issues myself, and it just sparked this thing in me where I immediately started doing research. And it's really funny because back then when Corey would hire people, he would put them through cannabis college, where they would sit down for 2 days with him, and he would go through every single thing that was in their kit, from 9 different types of flower to our candies that we made, to the RSO that he produced, all of it, right? And then years and years later, you have the Academy of Cannabis Science. So I just find that just makes my heart warm. So yeah, that just threw me right into cannabis. I quit the next day and have been working side by side with Corey ever since.
Wow. And so tell us a little bit about Skagit Organics for people who might not be aware. And usually when I talk to folks, I say, hey, look, you got to understand Skagit is one of only 4 licensed providers in the state who's been authorized by the Department of Health to say, hey, you're qualified and your products are approved for medical patients, which is a high bar. So I know that alone distinguishes you, and the fact that you all are patient focused, because we know so many retail licensees just went full retail and kind of left, patients for a second thought, and that's never been the case with you all. Tell us a little bit more about Skagit.
So Corey's best friend, Matthew, is also one of the owners of Skagit. And some of you may see Matthew, he's heavily involved with legislation. He's on the board of the Cannabis Alliance. He's really out there. But the difference with Skagit Organics is that when we went from medical to rec, we sat down and we said, okay, what's most important? And it was family and it was patients. And we promised all of us, and most of us from day one, we're still together, just so everyone knows. But it was just so important because we never wanted to lose sight of the fact that rec would not be here without medical. The patients brought us here, and we will never lose sight of that, ever, ever, ever. We're very, very small. But everything we do is driven for the patient community. It's first. It's always first for us.
And I witnessed that myself. A friend of mine was diagnosed with cancer and a variety of cancers, and Angela was one of the first people I called. I called Angela before I called a doctor. He had a team of doctors, but they weren't very cannabis informed, and I called Angela. I'm like, hey, this is what's up. And she said, well, can I talk to him? You know, can you put me in touch or give me more information about him? And Skagit was just through you. Skagit was amazing. Made sure that I knew where I could help him pick up his meds, where they would be available, the right cultivars, the right size packs, the whole bit. And just can't thank you enough because I know he's very much in dire straits, and it was a huge help. So thank you for that. We know as a processor, you all are producing oils, or among other things, so your primary products are cannabis infused oils or extracts. But that means you're getting your product, you're working with growers, right, to source that. So I know your process, and I've gotten to tour your facilities and know how clean and precise your husband's shop is. But talk to us about how important the sourcing is for the product, you know, and how you go about vetting people to know, hey, these are farmers we trust.
Yes, absolutely. It's incredibly important because, again, patients are taking this, right? My mom took this. My best friend took this when they were both very, very ill. And so it's so important to make sure that you vet the people that you work with to the fullest extent. So we do site visits. Every single grower that works with us has signed a pesticide agreement. So all the flower and material that comes to us has to be tested before, and that's for everything. And then it is obviously tested again before it hits the shelves. But oh yeah, they're subject to random product testing, or excuse me, material testing. So, you know, it comes in humongous bags. So that means out of all of those hundreds of grams or pounds, we will take one, put our hand in the middle, take a bunch out, send it for testing before we even do anything with it. So there's that. And then again, the randoms and just all of it. But we've been very, very blessed that everyone we work with feels the exact same way that we do. So it makes our job easy when it comes to that. So for sure.
Good. Yeah. You and I were talking a little bit about, and I know we talked to our students who are often customers and buying edibles, right? And so often our edible products are made with isolate products. So just singly THC or just CBD or both combined. But, you know, those people who are our students know, hey, that's one or two compounds of over 100 that have been stripped from the plant and then are being introduced to edibles to represent, hey, this is a cannabis product. And it is, but only slightly, right? Or it doesn't represent what that plant is. Could you talk to us a little bit about the importance of FICO products, or full extract cannabis oils, formerly known as RSOs? Could you talk to us a little bit why you think that's important?
Oh, yes, it's very, very important. So FICO, whole plant, that's the most therapeutic oil out there, right? It's when you use the whole plant, you not only extract different cannabinoids, but you do terpenes, all the other plant constituents, the lipids, the fats, the acids, the waxes, all of that is so, so important to hit your therapeutic sweet spot is what I call it, right? So yeah, when you use an isolate or even a distillate, all of those good things from that plant are removed to increase the potency. And you just get a completely different result when you take a whole plant versus a distillate or an isolate. It's fact.
And I've been doing it recently, making my own edibles again. And I was telling Angela for so long I was making edibles with like our infused coconut oil. But boy, if you go buy RSO, buy a little plunger or a syringe of RSO for, I don't know, around $30, maybe less, depending on a gram.
Hey Trey, if you recall,
So with that, you can make edibles for much cheaper than you would buy them on the shelf, and you're going to get 3 or 4 times your return. So instead of buying a bag of edibles for that has 10 servings in it for $20-30, you can make 4 times that, probably at least 3 times that for your money, and you're getting a full extract representation of the plant too. So if you're not doing that stuff and you're paying for edibles, it's pretty easy to do it the other way. And happy to talk to you all about that, or point you in the direction if you need some more information. But that kitchen chemistry can be tricky because, you know, if you don't mix well, or if you put more than you think in there, then you could be in for a ride, but still very cost effective. James, you were going to say something. Sorry.
if you recall, when I first started talking to you about my lotion, I do my own FICO. I get a 200 proof botanical extractor, and I make my own, and it's full of vapid, and that's where I make my good stuff for the harmonious.
Cool.
It's
Yeah.
4-week process. I don't have the good equipment like you do, but I found some nice chemistry equipment on Amazon. It was really helpful.
Yeah, just be careful, right? If you're doing that stuff, I know you know this, James, but you know, used to be people were making their own oil with PVC pipe and butane, and you know, that was what people knew to do. And now we know better. You know, we're evolving quickly.
It's not too expensive to get the glass on Amazon. It pays to be smart.
being able to make sure all that stuff is off gas, though, it's baked out, like that's a tricky process, and not to mention highly flammable, right? We don't want anybody blowing up, and so please know what you're doing. You know, be very careful. Obviously you can do I remember first time sitting in a room where somebody showed us how to use a hair straightener and a clamp to make homemade dabs, and we were like, wow, that's neat, right? And so things change quickly around here, or in this industry. Angela, you participate in a number of vendor days for retailers. What's something that still surprises you that consumers don't understand about cannabis? Is there anything that comes to mind that you're like, oh yeah, we talk about this a lot, and I'm surprised more people just don't have that information?
That it surprises me that a lot of consumers don't realize that pesticides were used in the growing process of their cannabis. And it floors me every time, because I'll talk to them about clean, right? So a lot of the time I'm there and I'm, you know, standing away from the counter, right? And as it gets busy, people come and they talk to me, and a lot of it, you know, RSO is not for everyone, right? So then I usually ask them what they're looking for today, and then they say flower. So then I go, oh, what kind of, you know, who's your grower, blah, blah, blah. And then they go, well, who do you recommend? Right? So I say Trailblazing. Well, why Trailblazing? Well, because they're DOH. Well, what does that mean? You know, so then I go, well, it's grown without the use of pesticides, this and that. And they go, well, what do you mean pesticides? And I'm, well, when you purchase your cannabis product, or when you're shopping, look at the barcode. If it says nothing, or if it says Azamax, or a weird word that you've never seen before, that is, there was pesticides used during the growing process of this cannabis product. So that's a big deal for me.
hmm And it's
Yep.
it's tempting as a home grower. We got aphids this fall, right? Got aphids on my plant. I'm like, y'all can't have my plant. Y'all got to get out of my house. And it's tempting to kind of want to have that nuclear option, right? To just wipe them all out. But all that stuff has a, when you use chemicals, they leave residue. Um, there are safer ways. We know they're like in that instance. There's another product you can apply. It's a fungal approach. So you actually apply a fungus to them, which gets inside them, kind of like a cordyceps, takes over their body and turns them into a fungus themselves, and then they fall off the plant. Leave no residue. You can rinse. The other is water soluble, so you can rinse anything else off. There are other ways to get there, ladybugs, etc. But that's not always the quickest way to get there. So sometimes farmers take the shortcuts or kind of have a near panic when they get an infestation of something. But especially, like you say, for people who are patients, we just can't afford. And I'm a patient. You're a patient. You're a patient as well, right? And so, we just can't afford to have these other residual items. I don't want any lingering. I don't want anything hitchhiking on my weed, right? So,
Yeah.
so it's important to be asking these questions if you all are not as consumers.
Well, and if you take it even a step further, right? So someone comes into a shop and they buy trim, right? A big bag of trim.
Yeah.
And they're going to make butter with it, or they're going to make their own RSO with it. Those pesticides, once you start to concentrate that down to an oil, it increases the level of pesticides. And it could become toxic. So you just have to do your due diligence. And that goes with anything, right? That goes to the hemp side as well. So knowledge is always power, and we learn every day, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will remind you all, this is an open consumption event, like all of our events are. So if you got them, you don't have to hide them. Feel free to smoke them. I'm going to do the same. Let me ask you something, and I'm going to ask you one more question, and I'm going to ask you all what questions you all have for Angela. But you all have a very unique product. Tell us about space weed. What is space weed?
So space weed is a flower that has been cured in an untraditional manner. So it's fresh frozen and flash cured in 24 hours. So the usual curing process takes a few weeks. And this is done again in 24 hours. So by doing that, we remove the water from it. So that equals a smoother smoke, right? And also the traditional curing process, the nugs, they get really, really small, and that's not the case with space weed. So they're bigger, they're beautiful. The terpene profiles are absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, I mean, the ounces are like massive because the nugs are the same size as when we harvested, right? So they're just the color green. Oh man, it's absolutely beautiful. So, but the biggest turn on, is the flavor and the smoothness of the smoke. So, but yeah, there's no other product on the market in Washington State that's like it. So yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if any of you grew up eating astronaut ice cream, that dehydrated ice cream stuff they sell, but you might want to try some astronaut weed. We know they won't let them smoke it on the space station, but y'all can pretend.
Yeah, and it's actually funny. So the consistency is really spongy. It's really bouncy because of that. And so if you like to roll your own joints or blunts, you don't need a grinder. You just use your fingertips. It's pretty cool. So yeah.
And I've gotten to consume some at a cannabis event with you all in Soto. And it is interesting, just like you say, you don't need a grinder, which is not for everybody. Some people like that real sticky, they want to gum up the grinder kind of experience. But it's worth it to try the space weed just to see. Like you said, the terpene profile is different. The fact that it's flash frozen and is able to hold on to some of those components that you might not get in a traditional curing process is very interesting. So worth a try, you all. What question?
Sorry, it also has a longer shelf life, and it's less prone to mold as it ages. Sorry, that's another.
No, well, and that's critical. We know that's one of the things that are weed, and I think in all markets is tested for us. Water content. We know that, like you say, water's the killer, right? If you get too much moisture in the jar, you're gonna have you're gonna have mold, you're gonna have decomposition, you're gonna have a problem. So, but you don't get that when something is freeze dried in effect. So fascinating. What questions do you all have? Because I always got more.
I have one.
Okay.
You mentioned that when you have a vetting process and you make your vendors sign for like quality. Has anyone ever refused to sign? Has that ever successfully deterred anyone?
No. Granted,
That's cool.
we don't reach out to other farms unless we have already heard and known we've bought their stuff at the store, things like that, before we reach out and say, hey, we'd like to partner with you. And that's what it is. A lot of the time too, we'll do what's called a split. So they'll come to us and say, hey, we have all this material. Can you guys make us some RSO? And we'll split the difference. Absolutely. So, it's pretty cool. We do more and more of that. And it's actually quite funny when I'm doing a vendor day, when someone comes up and says, oh, well, I only eat these chocolates. They're the only, nothing else does it. And I smile to myself because I know the RSO that is in that edible is ours. So
how funny.
it's one of those. So I'm just happy that they're ingesting something that's healthy and safe. So yeah.
And Angela, correct me if I'm wrong. You're doing exclusively alcohol based extracts, right?
Correct. Yes, we use organic food grade sugarcane alcohol. Is what we use.
So
comes from Brazil.
Thank you. And so for pros of you on the call, know that a lot of times hydrocarbons are used to produce these oils, and that's what you have to make sure doesn't linger behind. In this case, you're not worried about that because you're not using them at all. Also, Skagit does a great job of reclamation. So if you imagine like a really fancy moonshine still, but similarly, right? But it's a closed loop system. So the alcohol that's being used, once it does its job to extract the rich cannabinoids and other compounds from the plant, it gets reclaimed and filtered and reused. So it's really just a really nice setup you all have. So
Thank you.
I see James has got a cat in the background, and it makes me think about you. In addition to Skagit, y'all have I don't know if it's a parallel company, a sister company, Northwest Natural Care, which you mentioned before, that has products for pets. And I know this because I buy our pet products from you, and I buy our parents' pet products from you, and have referred other people to you all because I say, look, not everything tested is on the market is tested as stringently as theirs is, and y'all are producing human grade medical product and using the same care with the animal product. Could you talk a little bit about what's a common misunderstanding when it comes to pet products?
So a common misunderstanding, in my opinion, is that it has to be flavored, right? It has to have a bunch of other additives as well. And that's just not the case, right? So for us, less is always more, especially when a dog or a cat is going through a cancer treatment or is on medications. The other things that have been added in, little supplements here and there, flavorings, all of that, you don't need it. You just don't need it, in our opinion. So less is more for us. And yeah, I mean, my dog takes it, Matt's dog takes it, and they have no problem with it not tasting like peanut butter or salmon.
Or yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and it's important to have a plant. We never want to give human products to animals, especially in the cannabis space, because they can get intoxicated. And although, it's not going to kill your dog or cat, it can make them very uncomfortable. If you've ever had your pet get intoxicated, it's not pleasant for them or anybody. But these products don't intoxicate your pet. They're in dropper form, so you can either put it on their food or just slip it right into underneath their lip and squirt it on their tongue, and it's pretty easy to deal with. And so thank you all, because I know for us it's been a really good thing. Blueberry doesn't like taking medicine, but it's easy. It's really easy, a lot easier than trying to slip her a pill, I'll tell you that.
Good. And
What
it's actually one thing about the tinctures too, is that you can actually use it as a topical as well.
and we don't do that. That's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah, because there's nothing added to it.
Right.
You can use it a multi-use, product.
Yeah, you're right, and that's how RSO got its start. Was for a skin cancer. So Rick Simpson, if you all don't know, was a blue collar worker working in his company. I think he injured his arm. I think he had a laceration in his arm. Started making RSO when it wouldn't heal, and that's kind of the base of the story. Of course, his stuff was not super clean. Had to evolve. He was making it one way, and if not for him, we wouldn't have a better cover song, so to speak. But shout out to Rick Simpson, who helped to kind of start a revolution in that space. What other questions do you all have for Angela? Mary, what you got?
I am wondering what all your company does. It sounds like you make things, and then how does that get to the people? Like, let's say somebody needs medical help for pain. How do they get connected with your product?
That's a great question. So there's a couple ways. So just the straight, easy answer is look us up, right? And on our website, it'll show what stores we're currently in. However, the easiest way, in my opinion, is to go to a store that you frequent and ask them, do you carry Skagit Organics products? Okay. If they don't, then you can find us online, and my phone number is on there, and you will get directly to me and I will help you. We also have Skagit Wellness, where you can go on there and request an appointment with one of us three. So there's Matthew, there's me, and there's Kristen. And you book an appointment. We offer consultations for free. We never charge a patient or a customer. We never charge an individual for this service. And so typically what happens is you would do that, and then I would get an email saying that Mary would like to talk to you at this time on this day. And then I would call you, right? From there, I would do what I call an intake, where I ask you a whole bunch of medical questions, anywhere from what diagnoses, what symptoms, what medications, what supplements, how do you sleep, what are your goals? I mean, it's a long conversation, right? And then from there, I do research on your specific individual case, and then I come back with you with a recommendation. I always do three options, A, B, C, right? And then I email it to you. A lot of the time it will have all the different cannabinoids that I am recommending and why. Also a list of terpenes that I think might benefit you as well. And then even supplies, depending on what you're looking for, right? If you need to purchase capsules, if you're going to make rectal suppositories, vaginal suppositories, the list goes on and on, right? So then you review that with whoever is involved in your care. And then I partner you with a store. Okay. That store, and to be very clear, it may not even be my product, right? It's whatever product best suits your individual situation. I sell a lot of different companies' products. Okay. Green Revolution, Fairwinds, all those guys, right? So yeah, so I partner you up with a store. I let them know this is this is Mary. I don't like to use last names, but I say, this is Mary. This is what she is needing. Can you help her? If it's a no, then we'll go somewhere else. Most of the time it's a yes, right? I mean, I have stores that I've worked with for years that have what we call patient programs that are only with us. Okay. So that allows me to just send an order to this store with your name on it, your phone number. Once it gets to the store, they put it into their system. They will call you and say, hey, Mary, your order from Skagit Organics is here. And then you come and pick it up as you need it, right? Or, hey, I will have them actually order what you need from another company, and then they will call you when that order comes in as well. And you know, there's stores like CannaZone here in Mount Vernon. We've got one in Seattle now. Edmonds, they're all over the place. Let's see, Forbidden Cannabis in Lacey, and Olympia. They have 2 stores there. They are amazing to work with. We've got over on in Oak Harbor, the Green Room. There are so many stores that are just absolutely amazing and want to help the patients because they feel the same way we do, which is we would not be here without the patients. And to be very clear, we don't view, let me rephrase that. If you are taking cannabis on a daily basis to improve your quality of life from symptoms of either a disorder or a disease or a side effect of life, you are a patient in my eyes. And if you have questions, and if there's any way that I or we can help you, we absolutely will. So I like it to be as painless as possible. So having it, you know, a reoccurring order, whatever's easiest for you, it's one of those things. And with this, it's a journey, right? So I tend to follow you on your journey until you're on just a repeat, right? So typically you'll talk to me quite a bit the first month. And then after that, only when you need something, if something's changed, if you know, whatever the case may be, but I'm always available.
And Mary, that's been my personal experience in working with Angela on behalf of my friend who just couldn't get to the stores, right? And that's the experience he had, that we had, that I had. I just show up at the store and it would be there, and the communication was fantastic. I wish more people were like you, Angela. You know, wish more people had the focus for patients. Like you said, none of us would have so-called recreational adult use cannabis if not for patients, and we can't forget that. You know, states forget it because the biggest tax benefit is to serve everybody else, right? But as Tommy Chong and other people have said, all cannabis use can be medical. You might not view it that way, but if you're just smoking at the end of the day to relax, to unwind, to deal with stress, well, that's medical use, right? So, Paul, what you got?
Yeah, so I want to thank Angela because I know I need to set up an appointment with you. So in the introduction, I mentioned I was diagnosed with MS, but in 2019, I was diagnosed with CLL, with chronic lymphocytic leukemia. And then earlier this year, late last year, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. So I'm now at stage 2, and I'm going to go in to get radiation and hormone treatment. But I've also started taking RSO, and the one in particular is the CBG is on there. I'm also taking Halo CBGesus, the vape you see me smoking, is that. And so I want to get more information about if I'm doing this right, or, you know, what the process is. So I'm definitely call you next week. And so really appreciate you stating what you do. So beautiful.
Absolutely.
And I want to emphasize, we're not encouraging anybody to disengage with their physician, right? This is this is a yes and proposition.
Exactly, because I'm not going to stop taking, you know, the treatment for the radiation stuff.
And so, I didn't mean you, but I've heard some people say, "Oh, well, great, this is a better answer than my doctor had." Please don't make those. Well, it's your decision to make, but please consider we would like you to think of cannabis therapy as a yes and if you can be honest and upfront with your physician, let them know what's going on. One, they might not know and could benefit from knowing about your experience. Two, they might have an opinion that you agree or disagree with. But whenever possible, let that be a collaboration. Doesn't mean that you don't necessarily have to do one or the other. Sometimes it's a combination of approaches, as Dr. Giles and a number of doctors we've worked with often suggest. Mary, what you got?
Now, Angela, I'm just quite impressed by this. And my question is, how do you know? How did you find all this information out about doses and types? And it seems like there's so much to it. Personally, that's what I want to know. Like, how can you find out doses and what works for people? My background is as a nurse practitioner, and I'm retired now, so I'm not going into that, but naturally I'm just interested in that. How did you find out all that information?
Lots and lots of research. So, yeah, it's well, there's things that I always stick by, meaning, start or go low, start slow, or something like that, right? I'm not a fan of blasting the body, and I choose to run this program a little differently. And by that I mean I work with both Western and Eastern medicine, right? That is so important. I had a talk with some of the pharmacological students up at Western a couple years ago, and cannabis doesn't work well with all medications. It is a wonderful, beautiful therapeutic plant and can do some amazing things, but it doesn't always work well with others. And that is incredibly important. So each body's different. So when I'm sitting with a patient and I'm going through all these questions with them, I take each and everything that they have told me and I research literally everything to make sure that they're safe. There have been times where I've called that patient back and said, listen, I have to be honest with you, I am not comfortable recommending this product for you, any of these products. Please go back to your doctor and talk to them about the following things. Most of the time it's medication interactions, right? But yeah, it is just literally over a decade of research. I do research every single day. I am constantly learning. Even if I'm sitting with someone and my mind goes 1,000 miles an hour when I'm interviewing a patient, and I may already know what I'm going to recommend for them, but I always double check myself. And I think it's absolutely amazing that I work for a company that allows me to have that be the primary thing that I do for them. Yes, I do sales for Skagit Organics. Yes, I do talks. I do all the outreach and things like that. But the main part of my job is helping patients. I am a patient, and my sister is a patient, and her case is way more complex than mine, but mine is also interesting and different. And so there are certain cannabinoids I simply cannot take. There are certain terpenes I cannot take. And I know that because I've done the research. So that makes it even more imperative that I take the time and the care with each and every single person that I sit with, because I don't want to hurt anyone, right? And if I don't know that answer, I'm going to tell you, I don't know, right? Honesty is just, it's so important. And I don't know everything, right? But I'm going to work like hell to try to figure it out.
And thank goodness for people who are willing to say, I don't know yet, right? We can continue to learn, and we will all continue to learn in this industry. What we know today and rest on like it's law, 10 years from now, we very well might say, well, that was good information then, now we know better. Same thing, we talk about indica sativa hybrid. It was a language that carried us for a while. We know it's pedestrian and incomplete now, right? It's not absolutely wrong, but there are more informed ways to talk about cannabis. And so the same thing goes for so much of this. Please don't make assumptions, get professional advice, work with somebody like Angela. Please continue to consult with a physician. Angela, the work you're doing is just such a critical bridge, right? We know so many physicians didn't get this exposure in college, in medical school, and so many haven't availed themselves of available information that's out there. Some of the same stuff you're reading, right? Some physicians just have not taken it upon themselves to learn. And so the work you're doing is critical work, and we appreciate you for it. I appreciate you personally for the work, like I said, you've done for my friend and other family members. So I appreciate all of that. So thank you to Skagit. We hope that you all will, the contact information or the links are in the chat. So we hope you'll check that out. Continue to come back. We have not yet announced who will be here for January, but I can tell you for February Saturday Sesh, we're going to have the author of Waiting to Inhale, or one of the authors of Waiting to Inhale, Cannabis Legalization and the Fight for Justice, will be here with us in February, and she will be fantastic to talk to about the justice, the great injustice of the war on drugs and how that's affected individuals, communities, and families. So thank you all. Nice to have you part of our cannabis family. We hope you'll also come back this Tuesday. Jessica Strufert, who's a pulmonary specialist, will be talking about our lungs and what's going on inside. What does she recommend? What's the safest way to consume? What are some things you can do to be even more pro in your consumer, your role as a cannabis consumer? So thanks again, you all. Have a great Saturday. Thank you, Angela. Say hey to everybody up at Skagit.